What's going on, folks? Good evening. It is Earthmaster here checking in on the Earthquake Live 3D stream for an update September 19th, 2020. 9:06 p.m. here. Had to get some chicken off the barbecue, so I was kind of a few minutes late. But taking a look at the Earthquake 3D globe here. 6.9 should have dropped off the globe here real quick. Let me bring that down. There we go. Latest earthquake, a little 2.7 up here. Right around the, well, let's see exactly where that's at there. It looks like kind of like potentially Utah region. It's been a couple days since we've seen some earthquake activity out there. Let's see if I can bring that in here real quick. There we go. 2.7 near North Logan, Utah. Of course, we have seen about a month or so ago, we've seen some activity out here down south of Salt Lake City. But for right now, the 2.7, the latest earthquake there on the map there from the USGS up in Utah. Zooming in here to California, kind of like a hot topic down there around the LA area, following that 4.5 earthquake this morning near South El Monte region, Whittier, Monterey Park, Montebello, whole area down there. Pretty complex system of faults, lots of population density out there, obviously. Large population, I should say. All this activity occurred near, just south of the East Montebello Fault. We just had a small little aftershock there, 1.6, a little bit further away from the main shock region by about, looks like about a mile or so. Still, the depth of these earthquakes roughly around the same level below the surface there, about 16 to 17 kilometers below the surface. This other one here, this most recent one, about 19 kilometers down there. Taking place on the East Montebello Fault. It's a fairly new system down there, fairly new fault system, at least as far as knowledge about it goes. I think late 80s is when they kind of was wondering what was going on when they seen some good jolts down there. Finally discovered that blind thrust fault system down there, and it's a blind thrust fault because obviously you can't see it at the surface at all. No surface features, no differences in the land out there or the topography of the region. Just pretty much blind. So that's how they kind of figured it out there. Not a whole lot of aftershock activity, folks, and this is kind of what's got me concerned here, especially out here in California. Even if we have like a 3.9 or 4.1 striking, we normally see well more than the measly, you can count them here on the globe or on the map here, 6 aftershocks. A measly 6 aftershocks here, right? Here's the main shaker, supposedly. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, pretty easy counting there. That's not normal when it comes to aftershock activity out here. So I believe pressure is still extremely high in this region, as we are seeing some oddball quakes in areas where I haven't really seen any. I mean, you can have earthquakes anywhere out here in this spider web. I call it a spider web of fault systems because it is. I mean, it's so fractured out here along the North American plate and the Pacific plate. You see numerous faults, and this ain't even all of them. There's more that we don't even know about down here, I'm sure. And it's a very violent area when it comes to potential for large earthquakes. People just refuse to acknowledge that, or they go about their daily lives watching their TV shows and stuff and don't even realize that how dangerous it is living down in this region. But you got to live somewhere, right? But you got to be prepared as well. We are seeing a little increase in activity along the Garlock fault system up here. That's this strike slip system up here. Kind of runs southwest to northeast direction in a certain area. Not a big active fault, but very capable of producing some large earthquakes here. Back when the Ridgecrest area seen some large quakes there, we seen a little bit of activity pop off down there in this specific region, and now we're seeing that again. I did cover a little bit about the Garlock fault in those videos, but I'll go ahead and recap real quick. It's a pretty complex system out there. It is about 160 miles long, the second longest fault in California, and one of the most prominent geological features in the southern part of the state. And it has seen some large earthquakes out there. The last significant ruptures on the Garlock Fault were thought to be in the years 1050 and 1500. That's a lot of time since we have seen that. Research has pinned the interval between significant ruptures on the Garlock Fault as being anywhere between 200 and 3,000 years. So, yeah, it's kind of just like, whenever. Maybe this generation, next generation, maybe after World War III, who knows? But what are we looking at there? Looking at about over 500 years of built-up stress. The most, let's go back here. The most notable event in the Garlock Fault Zone was a magnitude 5.7 near the town of Mojave back in 1992. It is thought to have been triggered by the Landers earthquake 2 weeks earlier. So I always mention about how other earthquakes can have a adverse effect on other areas around Southern California because it is so complex down here. I mean, all it takes is just a little earthquake down here that could trigger a major quake along the San Andreas Fault. One little strain out here in the wrong direction, and we're talking about a massive amount of release of pressure along the southern part of the San Andreas Fault, up to 8.0. I believe, actually 8.1, I believe, is the maximum threshold level for a quake there along this region. If we see that entire section rupture here, now if we see the entire San Andreas Fault section rupture, I couldn't even imagine that. I don't even know if it's possible. I mean, that would be tremendously. I may have to look back on that and see if that's even possible. I don't think it is, but each section kind of ruptures at its own level. The southern part here, been a long time. We've seen the activity release up here in the north, and also the central part. But down here in south, we're looking at a couple hundred years of built-up pressure, and that's where the big one is going to occur. It's not a possibility; it will occur. So aftershock activity, folks, I mean, there's not a lot. The largest one so far in this little bitty cluster of aftershocks is a measly 2.3. So I would be on guard. Pressure has not dispersed from the region at all. Obviously, we're seeing the activity pick up here along the Garlock Fault system. Also areas outside of the main fault systems here, like this earthquake near Ludlow, California, taking place on the let's see which specific fault that is out there, kind of off of the Lavick Lake fault zone. Kind of a interesting area that I've really never studied too much, or it could be potentially the Bolin Mountains fault zone, excuse me. But needless to say, some odd earthquake activity taking place in Southern California today. And you can see all these little sporadic earthquakes here and there. That tells me specifically that we're seeing activity and pressure ramp up here in this section of the state. Be on guard. Another earthquake up there, looks like pretty recent, 2.1, occurring looks like a short time ago near Bodie. I think that's Ghost Town way out there. So, to put into play, just all these little oddball earthquakes, the increase in activity up here along the Garlock Fault, which is a completely different type of fault structure compared to these, these other ones that pretty much run northwest to southeast. This one here kind of is a shear type system here, so just be on guard, folks out there, please. Nevada is still seeing some earthquake activity. That's typical. We haven't seen an increase or a large magnitude quake there. Just some aftershock activity that we're still watching. It could take months before this completely dies down out there in Nevada. That latest earthquake up there in Utah, a 2.7 near Logan, Utah. We haven't seen a whole lot of activity over there. We can go back the last 7 days, all magnitudes, and you can see within this general area here near Logan, not a whole lot of activity. Some near Salt Lake City, where we would have to go back a couple months in order to see the larger quake that took place down here, and then all the aftershock activity that followed it. but I'm not going to. That activity has pretty much completely died down there. But up here, some new activity out here in Logan, Utah region. West Coast kind of on target right now for some jigsaw puzzle movement, if you will, of the plates. Let's get rid of that. That's way too many earthquakes out there. There we go. So just definitely be on guard out here. This could be the hot spot for a major quake out here pretty soon. Idaho still seeing some activity. 3.0 near Stanley, and of course many other microquakes out there. And that follows the large earthquake that they had out there a few months ago now. So yeah, smoke has kind of came back into my region, so my throat's kind of getting dry and irritated, so I might have to take a drink every once in a while here. That's a quiet spell that's going on. So yeah, you know, that's going to continue, same as like the Nevada quakes there that we're seeing, all the aftershock activity there in the Idaho region near the Sawtooth Fault system. Let's see, Yellowstone was pretty quiet. Some activity out here near Oklahoma. That's typical. Some fracking areas. A little small microquake here near Marston, Missouri. Kind of within the vicinity of the New Madrid, but no activity that would be concerning at the moment there within that region. Other than that, there's not a whole lot of worldwide earthquakes taking place out there. Some activity well south of South America. It's kind of not super rare, but it does happen, I guess. Just not all that often. Hawaii, we'll go ahead and swoop in there real quick and take a look at that swarm of activity. You can see some pretty good earthquakes out there, 34 of them. Not any major quakes, no major volcanic eruptions yet. Kind of keeping an eye on this region here where we were watching a couple years ago near Hawaii National Park. That's kind of interesting there. We're seeing some activity right at the summit there of that volcano. And also some down here to the south, it looks like. But that's always, you know, that's somewhat average, I would say, when it comes to activity out there near the Kilauea volcano. This is kind of, is not that same earthquake or same volcano that I covered here, what, 2 years ago, I believe, when it was starting to erupt. A lot of fissures in the ground and a lot of cool shots for photographers out there. Anyway, activity kind of ramping up in this region. Something to keep an eye on, and we'll monitor that a little bit closer. But other than that, not a whole lot of activity going on, folks. Looking at the seismograph stations there of Yellowstone National Park, you can see relatively quiet activity out here. Some interesting activity over here towards the southwest corner of the park. A little swarm of microquakes clustered together. It also showed up over here near Moose Creek, Idaho. You can see that same cluster, right? All you gotta do is just compare the two. Oh, let's see, I think I accidentally removed that. Bring this back here. Oh, it's the same ones. It's the same ones. Alright, so there you go. You can kind of see about the same time frame and whatnot of some interesting activity out there, but that's about the only stations that it showed up on. Maybe a little bit over here towards the Mount Sheridan area. But other than that, it's pretty quiet, relatively quiet. Some earthquake activity showing up from the Idaho region over here on the northwest corner of the park. Of course, closest to the Idaho border there, so that's expected. Tremor has been on the increase today along the Pacific Northwest. A little bit more of a cluster, I would say, a little ramping up of epicenters near southern Oregon. This is something to watch too, along with all the earthquake activity in Southern California and all the movement out there along the west coast, I should say the North American continent here. we definitely want to pay attention to this large increase in tremor out here in southern Oregon. Also, some in looks like right around the Oregon-Washington border up here. But this is little ramp up, I would say, compared to yesterday. Definitely a large increase there in southern Oregon, which tells me that things are on the move. When things are on the move, things can happen, right? A lot of bad things can happen out there. 141 epicenters here, not like the 3,000 or 4,000 that we were seeing over the past couple of days, or well, within the past week or so, but still a notable increase in swarming tremor. I shouldn't say swarm, tremor activity there along the Cascadia subduction zone. So definitely be on guard, folks. We'll cover the today in this earthquake, or this day in earthquake history back in 1985, September 19th, 1985. A large earthquake struck Mexico. 1985, pretty big one, that large 8.0. And the USGS is always mentioning one of the world's deadliest. That's their phase. One of the world's deadliest on pretty much every earthquake, every earthquake they cover out here. But yeah, it was pretty deadly. Definitely no laughing matter out there, folks. Large fatality number there, and quite a bit of damage and some homelessness was caused from that earthquake there. An 8.0 is nothing to mess around with. You have that in Southern California, and you could be looking at the very same information that's posted there for Mexico. Also, back in 1979 on this date, 5.9 earthquake in central Italy. Pretty big quake for that region. Earthquake was located about 110 kilometers northeast of Rome. Had a couple fatalities there. Many injuries and extensive damage occurred in the vicinity of Norcia. I kind of pronouncing that Hispanically, so I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation or not. If it's not, and there's some folks from Italy or know of this area, please correct me. I have no problem with being corrected. Considerable damage and injuries were reported within this area as well. So yeah, a couple good-sized quakes there on this day in earthquake history. Folks, definitely be on guard. Southern Cal, I keep bringing that picture up, right? I got it at the top of my my sources here, and I need to remove it. I showed this a couple nights ago about the North American plate and the Juan de Fuca plate. When it comes to tremor, you see the green line there indicating slip on the bottom right corner of your screen. That's where all the tremor has taken place, way down there, about 40. Oh, I can't remember the exact depth of the tremor, but it's definitely not surface. Way down there where we're starting to run into melted areas. But when we see that, obviously there's some back strain on the locked section of the Cascadia subduction zone. So it's notable to mention when we see some extreme tremors to obviously be prepared, because I think in studies and stuff like that, it raises the possibility of a release of energy at the surface there, or in the locked section of the Cascadia subduction zone. And that's, you get a release of energy in that area, you're looking at 8.0 or 9.0 or greater in that region. So just be prepared. All right, folks, we're gonna jump off here. Still got some chicken out there on the barbecue I got to pull off, so I'm gonna go get that real quick, and we will be out here monitoring the earthquake live 3D stream. So jump on if you have any questions. I'll try to help out, or some of the moderators may help out here, and we'll chat you guys a little bit later. Stay safe.